Okay, so I think the first thing to do is show you the different kinds of hooch that can form on the top and which ones aren't safe and which ones are. So I have a couple. This one is yellow, very clear, no spots of pink or green or blue mold, nothing fuzzy. All right. Oh, and also the smell smells acidic. This one is actually tinted a bit pink and orange. Do you see that? We're not going to use that. That could be contamination. I don't know, but I'm not going to risk it. And to get this, I literally had to leave this out on the stove for a couple weeks. Might have even been a month. But I also left this one on the stove, the one we just looked at, and it didn't grow orange or pink. So, just depends. This one's black. Black. Do we think that one's okay? Yeah, it probably is, actually. Black is normal, as long as it smells normal. Yeah, that doesn't even have a smell. So, probably gonna save that one and use it. Looks fine. And then this one is my original buckwheat starter. And it's purple. What do we think? Do we think that one's safe? It is. And it smells normal. No mold. All right, so of all of those, that one's leaking. Let me get a paper towel. Of all of those, the only one I'm not going to use is the one with the pink and orange tinted hooch with like little things growing in it. I didn't like that. Did I tell you guys what it smells like? I don't think it smelled weird. No, it doesn't smell that weird, but it also doesn't smell that acidic. So we're not using this one. There's like, there's a formation in there, you know? Little, that's not how the others looked. The others had a flat surface. The hooch would just roll off of it. But there's something pinkish in there. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to use that. And it's all orange and it's all pinkish. That's the only one we're not going to use. And it really took me leaving it out for a long time to get it to grow that. And the other ones, I left 4 out. And none of them grew that. And these are the other 2. These have also been out on the counter, on the stove, for just as long. And theirs is clear. See how there's nothing, like, growing inside of that clear hooch? There's no material. That's normal. This is all normal. Okay, so the feeding is next. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is drain the hooch off of some of these, especially the one that's leaking everywhere. And I'm just going to do it in this bowl. You can stir it in to your starter as well. I'm not going to drain it all off, but I want you to see that process. Watch quick, because this one's leaking. Look at that. That's what was under all that black. There's no mold. Oh, and I made some grow mold so I could show you too. But I'm gonna show you that later because it's gross. I wanted to show you mostly safe stuff this time. The only thing that was unsafe is the orange and pink stuff that was growing. So this is your hooch. This is actually safe. You can stir it back in. It will make it taste more sour. If you don't like the smell of it, don't stir it in. If you like that, stir it in. That's the only like difference or whatever. So I'm gonna just put some back. I'm smelling it to make sure I like it. I'm gonna put some back in, and then I'm going to get this paper towel up and just dump the rest out down the sink. Mostly because this jar is too full. I don't have room. It was over. Do you see it bubbling? Maybe you will. Keep an eye on that. It's very active. It wants to be fed. So I'm gonna pour that hooch out. And then we're gonna start feeding the others. I don't think I'm gonna pour the hooch out of the others. Okay, so I'm not going to pour the hooch off of this one. Very vinegary smelling, this one. I'm going to keep that. I use something like this so that I can scrape down the sides in here. But you can use a spoon, you can use a knife, whatever. The thing I want to point out is, okay, how do I explain it? Do you see how full, let me move this. Here we go. Do you see how full this is compared to this one? This is a quart of discard. I can't even feed it without dumping some out because this is how much I fed it before, and it always doubles. So it doubled all the way to the top of the jar. I have to pour some out of this and either use it in a recipe or throw it away before I can even feed it, right? There's no room. This one is all the way down here. Let me put the rubber band where it actually is. It's all the way down here. So I can obviously just feed this double, then it'll be up here. And when it rises, it will double again and be up here. Does that make sense? If not, it will, hopefully. So that's what kind of makes you decide, are you going to dump some of this out and use it in a recipe, or just pour it down the sink, or are you just going to feed what's already in there? I'm gonna feed what's already in here on this one, and I'm gonna dump some of this one out. I'm not gonna pour this down the sink. I'm actually gonna use it in a recipe. But first I wanna stir my hooch in, at least a little. So I'm kind of scraping the sides, and that's how I'm stirring it. It's just like pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down. All right. Since I'm going to use this in a recipe, a discard recipe, I'm going to pour at least half of this jar into this bowl. And that's probably a good time to say, you don't really need a lot of starter in this jar to revive it and make a ton. I can literally pour all of this out, and whatever's left on the outsides of the jar, I can make a new starter with that. So that's quite a lot. That's like more than half a cup of starter left. I'm going to take even more out just to show you. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. Whew. I put so much in this, it's so heavy. It's not, this is unusual. I never have this much. I must have been trying to just get a lot of get a lot of discard. And boy, did I. How much do I got left in there now? Okay, so see, you can see through the bottom of the jar. It's just stuff left on the outside. I can even take more out. Doesn't matter how much I take out. You can take it all almost. There, I got even more. Really scraping it. Okay, we can make more starter just from this amount. Not a problem. So this is my discard. I'll either make crackers or thin crust pizza or something with this. And it doesn't take a lot of time. You can literally just pour this into a pan and bake it. It'll make a thin crust pizza. You can add some flour to it and make tortillas. You can even just spread this out on a piece of parchment paper, just this, and make crackers out of this, or you can add flours to it for a different cracker recipe. Anyway, I'm going to set this aside. Rinse my fingies off a bit. Okay. All right, and then there's this one. This one we're not pouring out. So we're gonna stir the hooch in. And I could rinse this guy off that was in the other thing. I'm not going to. I'm just gonna run my finger around it to get all that off. Well, not all of it, but get some off. I'm just getting that in there. And that doesn't matter. Just stir that hooch in. Now it looks like this. Look how much thinner this discard is. Wait, how do I show you? Look how much thinner this is. Oh my God. Can you see it? There we go. Very, very thin, right? That's usually what it looks like. That other jar, this one, is what's known as, like, they'll tell you different hydrations of your starter. That just means it's going to be runny or not. And you do that by putting less water in it when you make it. Easy. That's the difference. This one just had more water in it. Okay, so it's time to feed both of these now. Ready? So the first thing to know is always feed the flour equal to or more than the amount of starter that you have. So if you feed these yeast, if this is maybe 3/4 of a cup of starter, I need to feed it 3/4 of a cup-ish of flour so that each yeast has a piece of flour to eat. If you give it more than that, that's okay. In fact, it's great. But if you give it less, it's going to get really hungry. And that's how you get hooch. And your starter will deflate and you'll think, oh no, it's dead. But it's not. You just, the ratio, you probably fed it less than the amount that it is. So this one isn't going to need as much flour because it's just, you know, what's left on the sides of the jar. What's that going to be? 1/4 of a cup? You know, I'm not going to put much flour in this. I don't need to. This one, I'm going to have to put So it's this much. This rubber band is marking the line where that discard starter sits. I need to feed that much flour to it. So it's going to raise it up to here. When I'm done mixing the flour in, you will see the level is up to here. Then you let it sit for 12 hours, and that amount from bottom to up here is going to double. It will raise up to here, to the top of the jar. Does that make sense? So that's why you try to not have very much discard when you refresh your starter. That's why people are throwing it away, because it quickly, as you can see, it will quickly fill up your jar in no time if you're not scraping out, you know, as much as possible when you feed it. All right. So, first thing we're going to do is add a little bit of water. I'm not measuring. I never do. You don't need to. You can later on in the future, but to start, just don't. Think about it like a couple tablespoons. This one too. Okay, good enough. Who cares? Stir it up. Cool. Perfect. Wonderful. You can even like close your eyes. You don't need to measure it at all. Now this one, I'm scraping down the sides to get all those little bits. And I'm putting it down in the water. And then I'm gonna stir it and mix it all together. So I'm just collecting it off the edges. And I'm stirring it, collecting. And stirring. Okay, good enough. And then, now, you're gonna put your flour in. And what did I say about the flour? You have to put as much or more as your little yeast buggies, right? So, I'm gonna eyeball this, try to show you. This is how much flour I have. I would say it's, I don't know, 3/4 of a cup, 2/3. It's about what's in here. I can't show you. I don't know how to show you. Let me turn the camera actually. Okay, let's do it this way. See how much of a difference this one has? Hardly none. This is the one where I scraped the jar. And this is the one where we didn't dump anything out. I just added a little bit of water to it. It was already pretty wet. I didn't need to add a lot of water because it was super wet. You saw it running, right? So what we're going for consistency-wise too is like a pancake batter inside of here. That's what your starter's gonna be like. So I'm gonna eyeball this and try to add as much flour as there is little yeast bugs. Okay, let me stop and actually do this like carefully. Yeah, we got to do it from this position when I add the flour in, but I'll show you after. All right. Just putting it in there. And then you can kind of look on the side and see if you have enough. I do not. You see that? They'd be starving. I didn't give every single yeast flour. I only gave about half, right? So let me go get some more flour. Okay. So we need more flour. I got the big one out. Let's get in here. All right. I'm not measuring it. Again, I'm just grabbing a giant spoon, dumping it, and then we're gonna check again. Let's just look at it. Does that look about like, I don't know, the right amount? we're good with it. And then you're just gonna stir it. I'm gonna put you back up here. I can't stir with one yet. Okay. So we're gonna stir. And what you're doing here, this is where you might want to add more water, because the consistency it needs is pancake batter. I don't add a lot of water until after I've added enough flour to equal the yeast. That's when I know how much water I want to make a pancake batter consistency. Let me show you the consistency of this. That's more like biscuit dough. Can you see that? It needs to be a bit runnier. So, not measuring it, just a couple tablespoons, tablespoon-like things, a manageable amount. And by manageable, I mean, you know, don't do it like I'm doing it. Say and then it's a manageable amount. Because if you go that's not a manageable amount. That's going to be too much. You could easily do too much then. I'm probably just confusing you with all that. I'm going to do one more meh. Not but a meh. Meh. Getting it all mixed up. All right. I'm trying to lean in and see too. I want to see. Okay. Takes a while to mix, but go ahead and mix it. Take your time. Pancake batter. See how it's kind of like ploppy pouring? Can you see the ploppy pouring? Let me see. Here we go. Let's try again. Ploppy pouring. There you go. That kind of consistency. Anything like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be runnier than this. Watch. It can be runnier. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, this one's all mixed. I'm tired. All right, I'm not really gonna wipe this off. I'm just gonna stick it in there. I'm gonna wipe the outside of this a little though. Then I'm gonna rinse my hands off. Okay, so this one is done. It gets a lid. Don't put it on too tight. And it's gonna go on the stove. Oh, let me show you. So that's where it was. That's where it is. I probably should have given it more flour. It's not exactly half. It'll be fine. Let's just feed the other one. Who cares, right? It's not about being perfect. It will still be fine. All right, so now we're doing this one. I'm gonna put the rubber band down just so that you can see where we're starting. And how much flour we want to put in it. So again, we can give it way more flour. I could fill it up with flour all the way up to here. All of that. I think it doesn't matter. I'm not going to because I don't need that much. So this is my opportunity to be normal and not make a jar full. To be judicious with my use of the flour. I do tend to make too much of this because, I don't know, I don't like throwing it away. And that's a problem that people have, is they will make too much of it. And I'm one of them. All right, so, you know, we have more. There's more of this than that, right? That's good. That's good. That's all we need. Look at that mess I'm making. All right, putting you back up here. Don't look at all this. Don't look at my things. Stop looking at my things. My chopsticks and my lids. Stop it. Those are secret things that we don't look at. All right, I'm literally just putting them back. Why did I even move them? Anyway, stirring, and again, we didn't put a whole bunch of water in here to begin with, because if you put too much water, you may find yourself putting tons of flour in here just to make it batter-like. So put your flour in first. Oh my goodness, look at that. It's so dry. So we're gonna murt with this, right? Tablespoon, tablespoon-ish, right? It's not perfect, I don't know. I'm sure that's not a tablespoon. But the point is to just go incrementally in small enough increments of water that you don't end up just pouring a whole cup in there and then being like, oh my gosh, I've got to use a whole cup of flour now? Man. All right, here's a consistency that we have. Again, it's more like biscuit dough. It's not doing any dripping. It's like plopping. So we're gonna murt again. Murt. That wasn't a very good murt. Neither was that. Murt. Okay. A murt is like a tablespoon-ish. Anywhere from a teaspoon to 2 tablespoons. That's what a murt is. You just want to get all that flour wet, because I think that's what makes it available to the little yeasty bugs. All right, let's see. Is it pouring? Yeah. Got a bit of a pour, and a plop, and a pour. So that's good enough. That's it. That is a fed starter. This now goes on the top of the stove, or the top of the fridge, or anywhere that you have that's kind of warm. Not too warm. Don't cook them. And you're gonna let it rise. Once it's risen, you can bake with it, or if you just wanted to feed it for fun because it's been a while or whatever, you can just put it back in the fridge at that point. After you feed it, you can just put it back in the fridge, and don't feed it again until you want to bake with it, or use the discard after a little while, whatever. But that's done. That's it. Make sure you wash your equipment right away, because this stuff will harden like paper mache or paste. Flour and water. Grade school. You know how that goes. So that's it for now. No, it isn't. That's not actually it. Okay. The last thing you need to do is you need to move your rubber band. I hope I put a rubber band on your starters. You need to move the rubber band to the level. Maybe I should do this with you over here. Move that rubber band to the level of your starter all the way around. This is so that you know how much it's risen. Sometimes it only rises a little bit, and you are going to want to, if you wanted to bake with it and make something rise really well, you might want to feed it one more time. If it only rises like partially, you might want to feed it once more before you use it to leaven your bread. So that's what you're going to do with your rubber band. Where's the other one that I fed? This one. Look at the difference in the one that I discarded, and we only had a few scrapings, and the one I didn't discard anything. There's a lot more starter in here. I used a lot more flour too. So if you don't use your discard and you have to feed it, you could run into like making tons and tons and tons and tons and tons, which is obviously sort of what I've done. My reason is slightly different because I was experimenting to try to grow different bad ones to show you guys, but still, it can easily get out of hand. Like if I fed this, if I didn't discard this, I'd have to put this much flour in it, and it would rise right out of the jar. That's too tall, right? Because it needs to double after you feed it. When you feed it, it sort of increases in volume by twice, and then literally the bubbles from all of that will make it rise twice again. So you kind of want to get rid of the discard and put it in your little bowl like I did. And you can make pizza crust with this without adding anything to it. You can make crackers without adding anything to it. Or you can add a little bit of flour, a little bit of water and oil and salt, and then you can make crackers, again, pizza crust, tortillas, pitas, naan, tons of stuff. So like if you go on Google or YouTube or whatever, you'll find people making videos that are like 109 discard recipes, and that's what you can use for this. And you can freeze it too, so really get it out of the jar if you can and use it up. But if you can't, pour it down the sink, or just do what I did here and make a slightly taller amount of starter. Okay, I hope that's everything. You don't have to feed it every day, only feed it when you want to bake with it. Look at how pretty my purple hooch looks. I love it. It's purple because that's buckwheat. That's like full buckwheat, nothing else. If you notice that this is not bubbling very well for you, add like a whole wheat flour. And Mom and Jen, the little baggie of flour I gave you is to boost yours. If yours does not react well to your all-purpose flour, put a couple tablespoons of the mixture I gave you into it. The wheat flour will help boost it, and if it was like sleepy, it will really like wake it up more. And keep it covered. The moldy ones I had, in order to get mold to grow on this stuff, it's very hard. I had to put it in like plastic and use a paper towel and saran wrap as the lid to get it to grow funky. So, you know, keep it in the fridge, feed it when you need to use it, and keep a good lid on it in the fridge, and you're good to go. If it's actively bubbling on the counter, don't close this too tight. Don't close it at all. Just set it on there like that. That's all it needs. You do not need, if you close it, it can explode because this is a fermenting thing. It's going to bubble, 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 bubble. Those bubbles got to get out. Earlier in the video, when you saw that hooch spilling out, that's because this starter was full all the way up to here, and that black stuff was on top. It was still bubbling. I don't think I got it on camera, but it was still bubbling. And so it was bubbling the hooch out of the lid because it's warm in here. So you don't want this lid on tight because that stuff has to escape. but once it's just discard and it's not actively making bubbles anymore, it only makes bubbles for like 12 hours and then it starts to deflate. So it's not like you have to wait forever. But once you do that, you can put your lid on all the way and put it in the fridge. But these have to rise, right? Because I just fed them. So they're only getting that part of the lid. I might set this on there like that. But that's it. They're gonna rise. And in 12 hours, which will be 6 a.m., they'll be ready to bake with. Or, if I have a migraine, they'll be ready to put back in the fridge until the next month that I feel like baking something. Okay, I think that's everything. Except for the moldy ones. Should I show you the moldy ones? Oh, they're so gross. Let me put these away and then I'll show you the moldy ones. As I was putting these away, I thought to tell you, you might be like, why aren't you draining the hooch off of this? The hooch kind of forms a high acidic alcohol layer to protect the culture below. So I'm not going to drain this. I don't have more buckwheat to keep it pure. This is my purely buckwheat one. So it's just going to sit here maybe for a year until I can afford buckwheat flour. It's really expensive per pound. And I could stir it back in, but I don't see the point. It's a good layer on top. It protects it. So this is a good airtight lid. So I'm very confident nothing's going to happen in there, except, I don't know, I've opened it around this weird pink one, so maybe that will get in there, but hopefully I didn't contaminate anything. But yeah, that's why I'm not draining this. That's why I'm not doing anything to it. I'm leaving that hooch on there. It sits in the back of the fridge where it's colder, and I don't really touch it. I haven't touched it for months. I've scooped some out to make new starter, but and that's how I know it's still alive. Like, super good, super active, it's healthy. But I'm not gonna do anything with this. So I just thought I'd let you know why this one's not getting drained. Okay, I just recorded a bunch of this and it did not go. It did not do. Where do I start? This one had a lid. That's the one from before. This one went here. Basically, these are the ones that I tried really hard to grow mold, and I had to use saran wrap, paper towels, basically cover them the wrong way in order for it to get funky. So this is them. These are the ones that then there was also this one that you saw before with the pink growths inside, right? So these are the moldy ones. This one just had plastic wrap, and you can see the mold right here along where my finger is, if you could see that. Here. Here. It's fuzzy. I don't know how well y'all can see, but that is fuzzy. And it smells like cooked pizza, which is not how it, like, you want a yeasty smell or alcohol or sour smell, but this one just doesn't smell. Something ain't right. It doesn't smell disgusting. It's just not what I'm used to. It doesn't smell. I don't know. This one appears fine. I can't find any mold, but that purple hooch smells sweet, which is uncommon. It's not something I've ever smelled in hooch. Same for this one. I can't find any mold. Maybe you guys will see it. Maybe I'll see it when I edit the video. But the hooch smells sweet, and I don't know if that's safe or not. I'm going to Google it. I've never smelled sweet hooch before. in my other ones. And I thought this one had, I think this one has mold in it too, but again, it's that sweet hooch. I think there's mold in this one somewhere, but I can't see while you guys are looking too. Oh, right there. Do you see that dark, dark, dark? I believe that's mold. I believe. Can you tell? Can't wait to edit these and see if I can see it better. Who did I not open up? Oh, okay. This sucks because this looked better in the last video and now it's very much destroyed. This dry stuff, I really don't want to touch this, but this dry stuff was on the edge of the jar. And if you actually just dehydrate your sourdough, you'll get it in little chips like this. This can be rehydrated and it's perfectly safe if it weren't moldy. This one's moldy. But if it weren't moldy and you get little dry chips like this is safe. If it's dry around the rims of your non-moldy discard or starter, the dry stuff, just add water to it and it's still good. It's yeasty goodness. So I'm just going to pull these out because these were what were on the side of the jar. It's a plastic jar, so I was just like moving the jar and the sides were flexible and it made all the stuff that was on the edges crumble off. But I want you to see what's underneath those chunks, because that's where I feel like there's mold. I'm not completely sure there's mold in there, but that dark brown is not mold. That's just how it looks when it starts to dehydrate. I've actually saved some at that stage. I just cut that off and used some of the dry stuff around it, like this white stuff. But this, before it had all those crumbles on it, I could swear I detected mold in it. So I'm not using it. I'm going to throw it away, the whole thing. This is a plastic container, so I can just throw the whole thing away. I don't usually keep my sourdough in plastic. This was an experiment. And again, if these hadn't been in a moldy thing, I would save them or just stir it in with the rest of my stuff when I feed it. But these were in a questionable jar. So the only thing I'm saving is my purple rubber bands. Rest right into the trash. But yeah, so those are the bad ones. That's what they all look like. This one's the best example. It's got legit mold up at the top, right here. The others had it up in the rim, so like check these areas. Look, you can kind of see it on the outside too. Check up in the what is this called, the shoulder of the bottle, where you can't really see very well. Check there for mold. It's kind of hard to see it, you know, you're looking at these and you're like, is it fuzzy, is it not? And then this has little, like, it looks like dissolved tissue paper or like petri dish tissue that's pinkish, orangish, and the water is even kind of tinted orange. This is contaminated with a certain kind of bacteria. It has a name. We don't use this, and we don't use the moldy ones, right? All those other ones that had black hooch, clear hooch, purple hooch, all that was okay. That's normal. They smelled like acetone, alcohol, acid, vinegar. These smell weirdly sweet. One already smells cooked, which is weird. This is the one that smells cooked. It's the one with definite mold in it. None of them smell disgusting. None of them would make me go, oh my gosh, I would never. So you gotta use your eyeballs too. But I, again, had to go through like, you're not even supposed to keep the sourdough out on the counter unfed. You're supposed to keep it in the fridge. And I had to leave 4 jars out on the stove for like 2 weeks or more, maybe a month, to get this pink bacteria to grow in one of the 4 jars. The other 2 I just fed and I'm going to use to eat. So, as long as they actually rise. They might not rise. We'll see. Am I going to be cautious when I eat it? Yes, I am. I'm going to eat 1 piece, and then I'm going to wait a day and make sure I don't feel sick. But if I don't, it's a free-for-all. It's good. It's good to go. And then these, you can see I had to use really bad, not airtight lids. This is plastic wrap and paper towel. That's what I had to use to get mold. And you don't have to have a canning jar lid. This is a Prego spaghetti sauce lid. They have a coating that kind of, you know, gives you a pretty good seal for these purposes anyway. And yeah, now we know what the bad ones look like and the ways to store them improperly if you want to grow mold, which don't. And otherwise, as long as you keep them airtight in the fridge and keep them cold, keep them airtight in the fridge, feed them every couple months. People have even gone a year without feeding them. I'm not going to test it, but, all of that's fine. And if you really want to save some, of the sourdough before you kill it, if you're worried that you're going to kill it, just like spread a little bit out onto like some parchment paper and leave that out on the counter covered, like fold the parchment paper over itself loosely and just let that dry out for a while. And you can actually use it dried like that. You can just reconstitute it by adding water. So if for some reason you do something like this and you grow mold or you're terrified of the way it looks and you're just not sure, you'll have dry sourdough starter just in a jar in your spice cabinet, and you can just pull it out and make more at any time. It's cool like that. Okay, so good luck. I hope that made sense. If you have any more questions, let me know.